I could see her walking to the plane. I'm just looking at my son and flipping him over, looking if there's like an instruction manual somewhere tucked in his diaper or something. There wasn't.
You're listening to The Spouse Angle, a podcast breaking down the news for military spouses and their families. I'm your host, Natalie Gross, and this is episode 32. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Spouse Angle. Last week, I was honored to facilitate a really great discussion on race and the military with military spouses Crystal Spell and Noelle Boyer. If you haven't had a chance to listen to that episode, you can find it at thespouseangle.com or wherever you listen to the podcast. Well, my guest today is David Carrera. He is a Navy spouse and recently won the Armed Forces Insurance Navy Spouse of the Year Award. And with Father's Day around the corner, I thought it would be fun to hear from a male military spouse perspective and military dad perspective. David is coming to you from Okinawa and has a really fascinating life story and journey as a military spouse. So, David, thanks so much for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you for rolling your R's. I appreciate it.
Got to put my Spanish practice in there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's great to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I guess I want to start at the beginning. How did you meet your wife and start this military journey?
Funny, it should go back to the Spanish language. My wife is also Cuban as I am. And I actually went to a museum in Sarasota, Florida back in 2004. And it was supposed to be on Cuban art, and it turned out being Ansel Adams' landscape exhibit. So I'm like, what is this nonsense? You know, I like this art, but it wasn't what I was there for. And some woman at the museum used to work in Hartford, Connecticut, where I grew up. And so we got to talking, and she was very polite, very an elder lady. And I tried to get out of, I wanted to leave. And she kept saying, do you know this person? Do you know that person? I'm like, we don't know everybody in Hartford. I don't know everybody. And I see this woman walking towards me, little girl walking towards me, and she's on her telephone, and she's got this Cuban accent. And as you know, certain Latin accents stick out more than others. And so I just stood up. I'm like, oh, here's my friend. I looked at her. I said, hey, are you ready to go? I've been waiting for you for at least 20 minutes. And she's like, what? And I'm like, yeah, let's just go inside and see Ansel Adams now. And she's like, okay. And so we walked in. I said goodbye to the nice elderly lady I was speaking to. And she said, did you just use me to get out of a conversation? I said, yes, I did. And I am not ashamed of that. So that's how I met my wife.
That's amazing. I love that.
Yeah.
Was she in the Navy at the time?
Here's another funny story. So after that, that afternoon, we went and we had a nice date at Panera. And it lasted about like 3 hours. We were just talking, and our families are very similar, coming over from Cuba in the 60s, and we were first generation Americans. And I talked to her once more on the phone, and then radio silence for 4 months. And here I am like a schmuck, like, hey, leaving her a voicemail. Hey, I thought everything went okay. Sending her an email. Hey, I didn't want to be that guy. So after a while I cut it off, and I was like, I forget it. And I get a random phone call like about 4 or 5 months later. And she says, hey, what are you doing? Do you want to come over and meet some of my friends? And I'm like, what happened? I thought you were, I didn't know what was going on. I didn't think, she's like, I didn't I tell you? I went to basic training. I'm in the Navy. And I'm like, oh, okay. So that was that. I didn't tell you? I said, no, I don't think I would have remembered that. I wouldn't have left so many voicemails, if I knew you were going to basic training. So yeah.
You guys have a son, right? And you did the single parent thing for a while your wife was deployed and he was very young. So what was that experience like for you?
It was very odd. I still have the vivid memory of her handing me my 1.5-year-old son and getting on a Southwest flight and just walking down that corridor. You can see them going. They let me go to the gate, so I could see her walking to the plane. And I'm just looking at my son and flipping him over, looking if there's like an instruction manual somewhere tucked in his diaper or something. There wasn't. So it was very awkward. And it was something, ironically, and I'll say this, I don't think I know just how little I did prior to her leaving than when she left. I don't know if that makes any sense. Like, I know that she used to change the diapers and do the feedings, and I was there to support her and everything, but I don't think that I did as much or enough before she left than after. Now, after, learning everything and making sure that I could do it all. And we were in Jacksonville. I didn't have any family. We had one friend, thank God, he was a pediatrician. He was a captain in the Navy. He's a great guy. And he helped me out. I would call him and I'd be like, "Oh my gosh, my son has his red bumps on his butt. I'm not sure what it is." He's like, "It's fine." That's what he would say. "It's fine." And I'm like, I call him freaking out at least 5 or 6 times during the time she was deployed, and I'd always hear, "He's fine. He's fine." But it was a big learning curve, and hats off to single moms and moms in general, because it was Groundhog Day every day, every day. When he napped, I napped. It was just, but that said, I think I bonded with him and a lot more than I would have if she hadn't deployed, if I'd been working, and she'd been working. So I was happy for the time with him, to be honest with you. I learned a lot.
How old is your son now?
He is 7 now and has no recollection of the terror that he caused my life when he was 1.5. So, yeah, I have a vivid memory of the middle of the night. His teeth were coming in, and when kids are teething, they get fevers, and I was freaked out. I didn't know what was going on, and he had just eaten, and he's crying, and I go and I grab him and I pick him up, and he's screaming and crying. I'm like, "What's going on?" Then he starts, throwing up onto the tile floor, like there's all these chicken nuggets that I gave him. I'm like, "Oh my god, what's happening?" And he's throwing up everywhere. And then the dog comes to eat, and I'm just like, I've got my son in my hand, trying to like get him to stop throwing up, and my foot out in the air trying to get the dog to stop from probably eating whatever my son's throwing up. It was just a mess. That was my worst night with her deployed. But after that, it just nothing fazed me, to be honest with you. And it's too bad you can't bank sleep, because I just remember those nights when he was teething, and I had to go to work in the morning, and it was just, oh my gosh, I'm not, my boss would look at me, he'd be like, "Just go home. You can work from home." I'm like, "Oh my God, thank you." So
How long was your wife gone?
she was gone almost a year. I believe they cut it short, so maybe 10 months, almost 10 months. Yeah. And and it was it was terrible because she didn't have Wi-Fi or internet where she went. So I would have to upload videos of him, and she missed his first steps, and she missed a lot of little milestones that I'm sure she would have loved to have been there for. But we support the mission, and the mission comes first, and he was in great hands. I wouldn't let anything happen to him. I said, I just have to keep you alive until she comes home." That's all I got to do, is keep you alive till she comes home, and then everything's good. Everything's going to change. So, yeah.
Well, since the overwhelming majority of spouses are women, I wondered if you could speak to whether it's been a struggle to fit in at all and if you've kind of found your niche in the military spouse community.
Yeah, at first it was. I remember my when I first reached out to the military spouse community, and I believe it was in Jacksonville, and I would get emails, "Hey ladies, hey girls, we're doing this and that," and I'm like, "Well, okay, I can get past that. It's fine. It's probably something cool." And I believe I went to a reading. I went to a room where they were all meeting just to say hello and introduce myself, and they were all sitting down. I sat down, and it turned out it was a book club, and they were reading 50 Shades of Grey, and they asked me which passage I would like to read. And I told them, "I'm just going to take one of these donuts and show myself out. I'm not going to hang around. But thank you so much. You guys are all very generous, and they were all really nice. It just wasn't my bag, so to speak. So I got out of there. It's been a little, and there's nothing wrong with the emails that I get, "Hey ladies" and "Hey girls," because realistically, a greater deal of women are more make up the spouses in the military than males. And I think after 2017, there were only 100,000 male military spouses in all of the U.S. military. So I don't expect things to change overnight. And I don't expect us to have a spotlight on us either. But we are a small group, but we are willing to help, and we do want to participate, and we just want to be included like anybody else.
Well, I know you're involved in efforts to help and support male military spouses, so I would love to learn more about that and whether you think there are any unique struggles that male military spouses face.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And that's a really good observation as well. Let me get to the challenges that the male military spouses face, because I've dealt with that firsthand. There's a lot of egos that are crushed when, especially when you either come overseas or you have to move every 3 years. And a lot of guys that I've met sometimes have trouble with that. So you're supposed to be the breadwinner. You grow up, your dad says, you take care of your wife and your kids, and you make sure everything's good. Well, if you're in the middle of like the desert somewhere, stationed in, where there is no work or no opportunity, it's going to be very difficult to live up to that standard that you think everybody else has, and it's really just in your head. It's not like that at all. For me, I had a great career, and coming to, and even everywhere we've moved, I've been lucky enough to pursue that career and to keep it going. Here in Okinawa, it kind of came to a screeching halt. I realized very quickly that there wasn't going to be anything for me here to do, so I'd have to make up my own entertainment, my own fun, or my own side hustle. But a lot of guys really have trouble with that, and some of the other things too is they don't actually reach out. Whereas I'm not sure if female spouses would be more apt to reach out for help. I know the guys sometimes feel like it's not my place to reach out. I don't want to. It's a sign of weakness, and I always tell them it's not. It's a sign of being normal. This is a normal feeling that you're having. You're in a strange place. They're speaking a strange language. Your wife goes to work, and you're at home. And now what? So it's totally normal to feel isolated and alone. And so what we've done is a few friends of mine created a Facebook page here in Okinawa called Manpendent. And we started to grow, and we'd have meetups, and we had like baby showers for guys that were having kids, and it's turned out to be a really fun group of guys, and some have left the island and they're still members. I actually made up a national Man Pendant Facebook page, so everybody could go on there and see and learn from others, and if they have any questions, to go ahead and ask. And I also have a Man Pendant website, manpendant.com, where you can go and you can read up about these amazing male military spouses and how they are contributing to their communities wherever they go.
I love that you embrace that with the man pendant.
Yeah, and a lot of people have, like, I know there's a lot of military male spouse groups out there on Facebook, and I'm a member of most of them. And sometimes, they give me grief because they don't want to be called dependents or man pendants or anything like that. And I said, well, it's not really dependent. What man pendant is about, it's about men supporting men, male military spouses supporting each other. Because realistically, only we know the hassles and the pitfalls that we have as male military spouses. And unfortunately, some people don't like the name, or they think it has a negative connotation. But I tend to just think positive about it. And we're all helping each other, and we're all pulling each other up. And I'm hoping that more people join. And we're actually trying to get into the there's an orientation brief in every base when you go there. So we're trying to make this national, where you can get the local Man Pendant either Facebook page, or you can start your own page and reach out to the male spouses, because we are a fun group. Oh my gosh, do we love to have fun? Sometimes too much, but it's a pressure valve release that's really needed in some instances.
Well, you touched on this a minute ago. You have transitioned a career as a video producer through so many military moves, and you have quite the resume that I hope you'll talk about. But many spouses who have come on the podcast before have talked about career sacrifices that they've had to make for the military, and that's kind of one of the well-known challenges is military spouse unemployment and underemployment. Has that been hard for you at all to transition your career and kind of redo that resume every few years or so?
I've been lucky in the States, as far as I haven't really had that trouble, where we were first in Portsmouth and Virginia, and I actually took a contract in Toronto. So I was flying back and forth, back and forth. So that was a little much. When we moved to Jacksonville, I managed to get a job there at a PR firm and advertising agency. And then when we moved back to DC, I was working as a creative services director for a lobbyist group there. And everywhere we've gone, I've been able to manage some work, except for Okinawa. Obviously, it's very slim pickings here. It's a small island, and there aren't a lot of positions for me. Ironically, I'm a little older than most male military spouses, I guess, that I meet, and or not by much, but just a little bit. And my career pretty much was great. And even to the point when I met my wife, I was, riding high and having a great time. I've managed to keep the same level of success throughout our PCSs and different duty stations. But for a lot of others, it's really, really tough. I know guys that come here that had great jobs in the States, and they had to come here, and there really isn't a lot of opportunity. Granted, Okinawa is unique in the fact that it's only, 70 miles long and 7 miles wide at its widest point. So this isn't the metropolis of job opportunity that people, that you would find anywhere else in any other duty station. So you really relegated to either, the on-base jobs that are somewhat low paying, and maybe, like you said, underemployed. Maybe it's not the skill that they were used to using in the States, and they have to, dumb down their career a bit, so to speak. But others embrace it, and they look at it as a challenge, and they substitute teach, which is always available here on island, or they find other side hustles to do. But overall, people stay pretty positive, especially when they know they have friends that are going through the same situation as they are. I think for the ones that haven't found us, or the ones that don't have friends, I think it could be pretty devastating.
Well, you have a YouTube channel where you kind of highlight some of the perks of island life. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, my YouTube channel is and it's everyone says, what do those letters stand for? And I didn't think this YouTube channel was going to be a big deal. I thought I would make it and my family and friends would see it and they'd get a kick out of it. So it's QBNT01, which is short or for Cubanito one, which is, I'm a little Cuban guy, or I was back in the day. But if you just Google my life in Okinawa, you'll find it. And what I do is I try to make it easier for people that are on island or coming to island to see how great it is and see how easy it is. Because when I was coming to Japan, I didn't know what to expect. I mean, we're in DC, and she's like, "Yeah, we got orders. We're going to Okinawa." I'm like, "What's Okinawa? Wait, the Battle of Okinawa? Wait, is that Japan?" And she's like, "Yeah, all those things." And I said, "Oh man, do I have to learn Japanese?" She's like, "I'm not sure." And so there's a lot of not knowing. Um, I've learned a little Japanese, just enough to get me by. Not as much as I probably should have, but going around the island and showing people, especially that live on base, because we live off base, it's a great eye opener for them, because some people are really scared to leave base and to go explore. And this is a beautiful island, and the people are so welcoming and nice. And this is just probably the greatest place that we've lived. Just to get people stop staring at the wall, get off base, forget about Chili's, forget about Burger King. Let's go get some sushi and talk over like this, talk on this beautiful restaurant on the facing the water. Let's just get out of the house, and that's what I try to encourage people with my YouTube channel. And I also like to show them things in Japan that they wouldn't normally see in the States, like Japanese McDonald's, which is so much better than the States. It's so weird. They have so many different sandwiches. Google Japanese McDonald's if you get a chance, and it's just amazing the food that they have there. But there's so many restaurants and so many things to do here, that it's pretty amazing. It's you could stay busy here for quite a many years if you really put your mind to it, and that's what I'm trying to do.
Uh-huh. You seem like someone who really appreciates different cultures and things like that. I mean, you met your wife in an art museum, so
Yeah,
kind of
you know,
seems like culture inspires you.
well, I told her, I'm fluent in broken English, so I can pretty much land anywhere and communicate with the local public. So, my parents had thick accents, when they came from Cuba and they learned English, and I had an accent as well, and I went to speech classes and to learn English better, to master the language, and because we didn't speak any English at the house, so when I would go to school, I would just nod and smile a lot, and that was my school day, but. Um, Okinawa here, you really, and people are, that's the biggest question I get is, oh my gosh, how do you like say I have to go to the bathroom or something? And I'm like, you just say I have to go to the bathroom. Where's the bathroom? They know what you're asking. It's not the first, you're not the first American to show up on Okinawa and ask where the bathroom is. Um, but most of the Okinawan people and Japanese know English, or at least try to, and they will help you. There's all the menus of pictures, so you can just point and say one, and they bring you one of what you pointed, and it's a lot of fun. And sometimes you point at the wrong thing and they bring you what you pointed at, and you're like, whoa, but you try it and it might be pretty good, or not. most times, yeah, most times it's good.
Well, you were also involved in some pretty cool volunteer work there in Okinawa. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, so I really enjoy volunteering, and it all started when I first got here. We had, like anyone else, when you PCS somewhere, you have, and your household goods show up, you're like, why did I pack that? I don't even need that. I haven't seen that in 5 years. So I started looking for places to donate on island, and it's a small island. And I hooked up with this group, Help Oki. And what they do is they provide support and services to orphanages and battered wives and battered women shelters here on island. And so I hooked up with them, and basically I just put the word out that they're always on base on Wednesdays, and let's see if we can help them out. And they started gaining a bigger Facebook profile as well. So I like helping them out as much as possible, whether it's through donations or whether it's through spreading the word and getting. Now they're actually taking. They're able to take donations on their website, which is fantastic. And one of the friends of mine that run it, Chris, he's just been simply amazing. We've become good friends, and he's just a stand-up guy, and he loves doing what he does. He's doing God's work, and it's pretty amazing. And the other volunteer stuff that I do on island is basically, with my son's soccer team, coaching soccer. I played soccer like maybe 2 or 3 years when I was working at ESPN. I played on their team, but that's the extent of my soccer knowledge. But they said if we don't get enough coaches, then we're gonna have to cancel some teams. So I said, okay, I'm going to stand up and man up and do this, and it's been so much fun. It's just been really fun, not only to see my son enjoy it and grow and be more outgoing with other kids and everything. It's to see the other kids grow and see the parents, and just the whole experience has been a lot of fun for me. And I think that's one way that if you're a male military spouse and you're on a base and you don't know a lot of people, volunteer to coach kids. And even if you don't know what you're doing, they'll thank you for it, because the parents I tell them right away, I'm no soccer coach, but I'm going to make sure that everybody plays and everybody has fun. And they appreciate that. And you'll learn and you'll meet people. And that's how I met two of my really good friends here in Okinawa. And it's been a wild ride, and it's been worth it. I thought at first it was going to be, it's going to be such a pain, these kids. And it turned out to be the exact opposite.
Well, I think that's a great lead in into my last question, which is what advice would you give to some other military dads out there?
Well, I hope she told you or he told you what you signed up for when you guys got married, because that would be really mean not to. But the advice that I would give other male military spouses is really simple: have an open mind, and stay out of your comfort zone. Because if you stay in your comfort zone and you stay at the house and you stare at the wall, you watch TV or whatever, and in your duty station or wherever you are, you're never going to get to experience the. And I'm speaking from someone who's living in Japan. Experience the local culture, the local attractions, and the history that your PCS or your new duty station has to offer. Something else I would say is, if you're feeling depressed or if you're feeling, like lonely, and it's normal. And I know it sounds, silly. Oh, I'm so lonely, I could cry. It's not. It's a real thing. And if you're
Mhm.
feeling that way, you should reach out to someone who can help you, or you should reach out to a buddy, and let them know how you're feeling, or find a group. Come to our Facebook site, Manpendent, and find some other guys that are in your area, and go out, go have a beer, go have a soda, go have a water, whatever, and just make new acquaintances, make new friends, and get a social network going, because being alone is not fun. As much as some people say, oh, I'd love to be alone for the rest of my life, oh, it'd be great, for the 99.9% of us, it probably wouldn't be. So if you're feeling down or whatever, just go out and meet some other people if you can. Go on online. Facebook. Okinawa is run by Facebook. I'm convinced of that, because anything you want in Okinawa you can find on Facebook, and I'm sure that other stations around the globe are pretty much the exact same way right now. Find either a man pendant or find a male military spouse group and join, and just start asking questions. Hey, is anyone here? Is anyone here in North Dakota, in the middle of whatever this town is? And you'd be surprised to see how many people be like, yeah, I'm there. Where are you, man? And it just starts that way. It's sowing seeds and watching them grow.
David, is there anything else that you want to add about anything we've talked about, including dad life?
Dad life. The movie Mr. Mom is totally real. I experienced that firsthand. So Michael Keaton, thank you. He ruined my life. No, actually, it is real. But I would like to take one opportunity, and I think most male military spouses will feel this way. I'd like to take a moment to celebrate the women that are active duty right now and serving in our military. Because I think, as much as the male military spouse is like seeing Bigfoot riding a unicorn in the forest, oh my God, this shouldn't be happening. You're a male military spouse, right? We should also celebrate the women that are active duty in our armed forces right now in all branches, because I think they, as well as the male military spouse, are a little never really have the spotlight on them, and I think they provide and do just as much as their counterparts. And I just think we should celebrate them and not forget what they're doing. There's a reason that we support the mission, and there's a reason that we take our kids while they're deployed, and there's a reason why we volunteer and why we get involved in military spouse groups, and why we love the military life for the most part. And it does have its plus and minuses, but there's a reason we do this, and we do this for them. And this is why when my wife looks at me and she says, can we stay another 2 years? I look at her, I say, absolutely, we can stay. Is this great for the career? She's like, yes. I'm like, absolutely. If that's what the mission calls for, that's what we're doing. We support them and they support us. And I think together, that's what makes this whole thing work. Otherwise, I'd be sitting in Hartford, Connecticut doing something, which doesn't really sound appealing when I look out the window and I see the ocean, every morning. So,
Right.
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Well, David, thanks so much for coming on the Spouse Angle. It was wonderful getting to know you today, and I appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Natalie. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Spouse Angle. I hope you enjoyed it. Wherever you're listening, I hope you'll hit that subscribe or follow button and consider leaving us a rating or review. You can find more Spouse Angle stories at thespouseangle.com and connect with us on social media at Spouse Angle Podcast. Happy Father's Day to all you military dads out there, and I will talk to you next week.